Hi there, everyone, truth seekers. Truth seekers. My defiance to conventional science is purely out of rebellion, but it's not serious. I have a lot of respect for things that have happened in science. This topic, magnetic energy and the laws of physics, is a big topic, so let's just see how this goes. And I'm really referring more to kind of classic model laws of physics, like the planetary motion, the bigger stuff. Although what we're going to talk about, you could apply this to a lot of the different areas and a lot of the different laws. And I think it should be. When the laws of physics, obviously, they've been developed over many, many years, the empiricism culture that has evolved in science it's damaging in so many ways. And when new technology comes out, when mass consciousness is elevated and our awareness of other dimensions becomes more commonplace, and we have the technology to prove that so many things are interdimensional, so many processes are interdimensional, it's my feeling, and that's why I want to talk about this, and I think there's a lot of people out there that would agree, that the laws of physics need to be revisited, they need to be rewritten. We need to get to the place, and we probably will get to the place, where the revisions to those laws are realized or manifested before the math is there to fully back them up. And it's so important for people to realize that math does not necessarily equal reality. And to create this framework of solid particles that behave in a certain manner and have a certain mass and behave to certain gravitational positioning and flow and everything, that Copernican mindset. Let's just talk about some of the things that are going to come forward that are going to render that many of the laws of physics just, I don't want to say completely wrong, but definitely not encompassing. They may apply to a very limited set of circumstances. And so one example of that is, we're going to get to the place where it's scientifically and engineering wise that it's very established that everything is essentially an open system, that there is energy flowing in and out of everything. Even when it comes down to magnets and their polarities, those polarities are generated through an energy that's flowing in and energy flowing out of those. That's interdimensional energy. Same thing with positive and negative charges. We're looking at an inflow and an outflow and a representation of etheric energy. And so particles, energy flowing in and out of them at all times. And so when you think about things like the law of motion and things that are set, the laws of motion, and something set into motion, essentially what the magnetic energy model is saying is that every movement of a particle depends on an interdimensional energy process flowing through that particular particle. And what a particle is a configuration, a molecular structure configuration of energy vortices that flow at different rates and are in a specific configuration. And when that is locked together through magnetic forces and through polarity forces, which is an inflow typically locking to an outflow, and there's an unlimited number of configurations that can take place, that is the essential formation of elements and formation of particles. There is, I don't even think I wrote it up there, but there's no such thing as mass. Everything is energy. And there's nothing solid, fundamentally solid in any particle. The fields, the magnetic fields, the compressed magnetic fields that provide gravitational influence, that's what gives everything the illusion of mass, or the different fields, the strength of those fields holding together through an inflow and outflow of interdimensional energy, those vortices locking into each other. So as soon as you start to break down reality as not being simply a physical empirical process or an empirical manifestation, all of a sudden you have to start reworking exactly what's happening with particle movement, with the laws of physics, with planetary motion. Oh, one energy. So, and this could spin off into a few different videos, but it's typical of physics to create this idea of counteracting forces, opposing forces. Like, for example, like the conventional model of a star being a nuclear furnace that's pushing against the gravitational contraction of that star. That whole model is, I guess I just say it this way, it will be shown that that is completely wrong. And what's really happening is we have interdimensional energy going into a star. That energy is being transmuted and then coming through a star, coming out of a star as heat or light, depending on what's in the path of the energy and how the ether is affected by that reaction. And we'll get into more detail on that later. But the point being that there's no such thing really as opposing forces. It's all one force manifesting in different ways. It's all different expressions of the same force. Like magnetic energy, compressed magnetic energy can express as a gravitational field. It can also express as the same force that's holding molecules together. So it's just different expressions of the same force. And the reason why we say it's magnetic in nature is because it works on an attract process. Now that attract process is an attraction of likes, it's an attraction of energy. That draw, if you will, that interdimensional draw, creates a pressure system. And that's where we get tremendous pressure. You can get tremendous like gravitational fields, tremendous energy fields. Our atmosphere and the pressure that we feel and the pressure that's measured, that's a magnetic influence. That's the cause of energy flowing in and out of our dimension through massive vortices that create a pressure influence. Let's see, what else do we have? Multidimensional, and I think that's obvious. I've been talking about that a lot, even in these first few videos, how the multidimensional process is so key to everything that's happening. And the idea that certain reactions are taking place simply in this physical dimension is a notion that is, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to say it's ignorant, but maybe it's just based on a lack of technology or a lack of awareness of what's really happening. But that's all going to change. And so every process is interdimensional. The idea of space, of nothingness, is completely absurd. When we get back to embracing the etheric model and people come to realize that what's around us is this incredible sea of pulsing neutral energy that is constantly in motion, it's constantly being attracted into every system, down to the subatomic level, and that flow process is a constant. Magnetic energy is a constant. And it is a constant at a very high rate, and it is very dependable. We depend on it. The universe depends on it. Interactions and processes that take place throughout the universe absolutely depend on the consistency of that flow. Now, that being said, that flow is random. It takes place in a random sequence that repeats. So there is an element of randomness to that energy and to that process, and that's will become very important to understand as the technology evolves and we are harnessing the energy more. You have to be prepared to interact with, attract, and harness a random flow of energy. So from a technological point of view, that is accomplished through circuitry, that is accomplished through various modalities that we've described in detail on the website. And let's just think about real quick the consequences of moving to an empirical model, and how that's happened over the last few hundred years in the so-called science. Empiricism, it delegitimizes the unseen. And so not only does it do that for science, for scientific purposes, and for like free energy devices or devices that are harnessing or attracting etheric energy, it delegitimizes that. It also does it for spirituality. It does it for any type of paradigm or model that involves anything in the unseen, and that could be things like magical practices, that could be just anything that cannot be seen and touched. Science started to delegitimize, and that, you know, we have the smartest people in the world telling us things like astrology can't be true because it can't be measured, it can't be, you know, there's been studies, and magic can't be real because it's not something that they can see and touch and replicate in a lab. But all of that is about to change, because the unseen is about to become seen. And when that happens, the models have to adapt. They're going to have to change. The laws of physics need to grow up. They need to welcome reality and welcome that we are interdimensional beings, that everything around us depends on an interdimensional flow of energy, and that it's how we exist. That's how this particular dimension works. We depend on other dimensions and the energy flowing through them. So let's think about a couple of the other consequences, and I should touch on this more later. If you think about in terms of like relativity, and you think about the idea of space and the idea of distance, it creates this paradigm, which is an illusion. It's all an illusion, that things are really far away, that the idea of space travel is nearly impossible unless there's some sort of completely sci-fi revolutionary breakthrough. The stars are so far away that to do that in our lifetime is completely impossible. That the idea of other intelligent life coming here is really impossible or hard to believe, because it's impossible to go past the speed of light. It's impossible to do to travel through such vast distances, because it's just space, it's empty, and how do you power things, and how do you there's problem after problem after problem. And that's all an illusion. From a magnetic energy point of view, not only are we very close to our stellar neighbors, we are all in the same neighborhood, and our systems, our planetary systems, are all connected through energetic pathways, through neutral rivers of energy that run through space. We're very closely connected. There's energy everywhere, and that energy is absolutely 100% available to power vehicles far beyond the speed of light. Okay? Magnetic energy vehicles, spaceships if you will, we should do a whole video on that, travel at a nearly infinite velocity. So it's time, so the idea of UFOs visiting us becomes legitimate. The idea of visiting other worlds becomes legitimate. Energy flowing through us and flowing through our bodies and flowing through us with our intentions and our thoughts and everything all becomes legitimate. Magical practices become legitimate. Metaphysical practices become legitimate. Paranormal experiences become real. They're possible. Even concepts like astrology, that becomes legitimate, because the connection, the magnetic energy connection between us and other planetary bodies and constellations and everything is an instantaneous connection. It's a very real connection, and there could be influences. And when we get to that place where we can measure that level of sensitivity, we may fully document that in a laboratory setting even, because we can see beyond just the physical. So it's time, and it will become time, to revisit the laws of physics and to incorporate them into a new world view, into a new universal view that isn't just empirically based. That's shortchanging our existence, it's shortchanging our reality, and that's another thing that really honestly needs some serious revision. I guess we'll just call it there for now. We'll see you next time.